and we will continue to give you rolling coverage on the State of the Nation address. Our reporter Mbali Thethani is outside Wits University. Let's cross to her now. Mbali, we know that when it comes to dealing with the fact that many young people in the country, millions in fact, are out of work or perhaps qualified and not able to get employment. You're standing outside a key institution when it comes to graduates, degrees, and the expectations.
That's right, Paul. When President Cyril Ramaphosa delivers his State of the Nation address, many young people across the country will be waiting to hear key developments in that State of the Nation in terms of how he plans to address youth unemployment and also how he plans to tackle job creation, especially for students who are coming out of university and into the job market. Paul, we do know that last year students were largely affected by the pandemic, and we know that teaching and learning had to turn to virtual means. So that means that students were complaining about the means of technologies to do that, and we know that the academic year as well was largely affected because of the pandemic. But just to break down these issues, Paul, we are joined by the Wits SRC President Mpendulo. Now, Mpendulo, we know that President Ramaphosa is expected to deliver the State of the Nation address. As young people, you bore the brunt last year and of course even spilling into this year of the pandemic. Now, what it is exactly that you want to hear in particular when the President delivers his SONA address?
Okay, thank you for having us, and thank you for giving us the opportunity. Greetings to the viewers at home. First and foremost, I think every student in the country is expecting a well-detailed plan on jobs post-COVID, right? We want to know what exactly is it that unemployment will be addressed by post-COVID, right? Unemployment currently is ridiculous in the country. University students leave university without hope. There's a sense of hopelessness in the country, and we want him to give us a detailed plan on how to address unemployment in the country. That's one. Second, it's not only unemployment, but we would want the president to address a sense of higher education funding in the country. We would know that last year and this year there were no projected extra costs for higher education in the country. And by projected higher costs, there's no one who was using buses on campuses, there's no one who was using toilet papers on campuses. So it makes no sense for why there was a fee increment across the university spectrum in the country, right? So we want for him to address that. And I'm raising this because in a country where education is a prerequisite for socio-economic and occupational advancement, then education might not be a solution to advance class and race inequality, but to reinforce them. Because if the doors of learning are accessible to some and they're not accessible to others, then we're reinforcing class and race inequality in our country. So that's the first thing we'd want to really expect him to address. Unemployment, youth unemployment in the country. And we would expect him to make the COVID relief fund permanent, right? As you would know, in this country, sanitary towels are still not free. In this country, young people are without jobs. There's a sense of hopelessness, and we would want the president to give hope and give us a detailed plan. Don't tell us jobs are going to come. Tell us how our jobs are going to come.
Now, Mpendulo, we do know that you've specifically focused on unemployment and jobs, and we know that we saw that unemployment grant coming to the fore last year because of the pandemic. But do you think that this is the solution? Do you think that this is the answer, especially at a time where we find ourselves where the state of the economy is really in tatters?
Look, as it stands currently, we would not be in a position to say, look, young people must stop getting the COVID relief fund. There's so many young people in this country who are counting on that money. There's so many young people in this country who are continuing to lose jobs every day. I'm referring to graduates and people who can't access the higher education space, right? So stopping the COVID relief fund will only stress and give more problems to the young people in this country. So yes, we are calling as young people in particular and as the VSSRC for the COVID relief fund to become permanent. It addresses a lot of things, some of which might be undermined by some, but they are really serious needs.
Now, students bore the brunt last year when it came to issues around the academic year, and especially where education had to move to online means. Is this something that you want the president to address? We know that students have on numerous occasions spoken about the issues of data costs. They had to even move their educational year to virtual means. So is this something you also want the president to address?
So we want the president to obviously address the issue of laptops. There's universities that still don't have access to laptops to this day, right? We want him to address the issue of data. We can't expect someone in rural Lusigisi in Eastern Cape, someone in Soweto, someone in rural Limpopo to expect and cope without the necessary tools, especially in this COVID era. Right? We expect him to provide students in rural and remote areas with equipment to study going into the 2021 academic year. If not, really, we are setting the students up for failure, and it would be really unfortunate, not only on them, but on the families that are counting on them to produce and to become breadwinners at some point.
And when you speak to some of the students, do you think that there is a sense of hope that, you know, some of these issues, the key issues in which you have mentioned, jobs, data costs, these issues will be addressed when the president delivers that SONA address?
Honestly speaking, when I've spoken to the students and the younger people in the country, there's a sense of hopelessness. People are beginning to think that hard work does not pay, right? And it's wrong, right, for them to think hard work does not pay. And the reason, but they're destined to think hard work does not pay because there are no results. They're not being employed. They're not seeing progress. They're not seeing any advancement of some sort, right? Young people are languishing in poverty, right? Young people in this country are without access to higher education, right? The budget of higher education is constantly being decreased. So really, there's a sense of hopelessness, and President must give us a way forward that will bring hope. But not only give us hope, he must give us results. We want detailed results.
Of course, that is Mbendula. He is the Wits SRC, just talking about some of the issues that students and the young people in this country would like to hear in that address. He says that there is a sense of hopelessness when it comes to young people in the country, and also highlighting that unemployment grant, saying that this is something that he wants to be permanent, saying that it does sort out and solve some of the issues, especially unemployed young people, including graduates. It says that it helps in some sort of way.
Very well, Mbali. Let's leave it there for now as we continue our reaction on what South Africans want to hear from President Cyril Ramaphosa tonight. I'm joined by attorney and scholar at the University of Pennsylvania, Hope Matsila. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. We've just heard from students on the ground speaking to a sense of hopelessness, saying that they're starting to believe that hard work doesn't pay, and they are looking to get some sort of hope and inspiration as the president addresses us this evening. And we know that COVID-19 has increased South Africa's unemployment problem to new extreme levels. What issues does the president need to address this evening?
Well, good morning, Mpo, and thank you so much for having me. The employment remains one of the most pressing issues to our country, and I'd like to actually talk about the SONA last year. The president talked about programs that are being implemented, but I do know that for a fact tonight, COVID-19 is going to be used as a scapegoat for most of these failures to implement programs. So I'd like to focus my point on the women unemployment rates in South Africa. And the president did mention in last year's State of the Nation address that labor, business, government, and communities were brought together to find solutions to these unemployment crisis. These stakeholders were to meet once every beginning of the month, but I do know that it's important to note that COVID-19 happened, and we do focus our attention there. So with that, let me lay my foundation on my assertion here. COVID funding, for example, for small businesses did not reach a majority of the people in rural areas. Let me give you an example. Forabodwe in the Limpopo province, this is a village that is situated between Messina and Masisi. In this village, a lot of people did apply for this COVID-19 relief for their small businesses. However, they did not receive a single cent up until to this day. Not everyone, but it's a majority of the people that actually crying over this. So a majority of the farmers in these areas who have been involved in subsistence farming for their entire lives and are now farming commercially with their registered companies for over 20 years, and they still have applied for this funding and they still haven't received a single cent, and it's beginning to be a serious problem when these policies are addressed at local level, these people are actually overlooked. The deep rural areas of South Africa remain overlooked. Let me just give you another example. Over the past 3 years since Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, became president, South Africans received funding, state funding, to attend TVET colleges. And while this is a great feat, I was only able to meet one of these beneficiaries at the village I talked about earlier. That alone should enable us to discern that although opportunities are there, there are still a large number of youths in South Africa, in the outskirts of South Africa, who do not have the knowledge about these opportunities. And in essence, I reckon it is best for the president to address accountability at local level tonight at the State of the Nation address, because it's one thing to give people hope, but it's actually another thing to actually ensure that policies that are actually put in place do make people feel hopeful.
How important will that word accountability be this evening when it comes to the president delivering these messages, and of course to people who are really looking for answers, with the unemployment rate standing at where it's standing and job seekers really looking to find work? Accountability, and especially looking at what we've seen in the political space, the impact of a State Capture Commission of Inquiry findings, the SIU's work. How imperative is accountability?
Accountability remains very, very important, because accountability should in fact be the very center of our democracy. And if the president does address this problem of accountability at local level, because those are the people that are actually in charge of putting policies in place that actually do help the people, I think it will be very fundamental for that to be at the top of the priorities tonight. And I think this will also help to remove these blockages that could very well make it easier for interventions to take place that could actually help the youth of this country, as well as the people that are actually in the deep rural areas that are unable to reach these opportunities because of lack of information, lack of people reaching out to them.
The president has also spoken about building futuristic cities and bullet trains. But what about first focusing on sectors such as agriculture that mainly, many subsistence farmers in South Africa experience? What do you make of that dynamic and that balance when it comes to the relevance of also creating opportunities in the country?
That is a very, very good question, because speaking of futuristic cities and bullet trains, that is actually something that is not even of paramount importance right now, because we need to focus on what is already there. And what we focus on now is alleviating poverty. And we could do that by actually focusing on sectors that already hold a large majority of the impoverished people of South Africa. And that is farming, as an example. And by supporting subsistence farmers to become actually commercial farmers, that could help alleviate poverty, because that in itself creates unemployment for the residents of such communities, and also foster how could I say this? Could also foster people to actually be able to take care of themselves and their livelihoods.
I suppose the big question now is the how part. A lot of people are saying that they've heard over the years, over the other State of the Nation addresses, what the president wants to do, but they still want to know how. And they're looking to hear him, the president, give us a short, sharp answer that he seriously risk, or else, pardon me, he will seriously risk squandering what is left of the confidence citizens have in the presidency. What do you make of that statement when it comes to the how and the impact the how will have on the citizens of the country?
Well, as citizens of the country, we have lost hope, in the sense that for every single year, the State of the Nation address has a lot of issues to address that are actually being addressed during the State of the Nation address and giving people hope. But then nothing is done to ensure that people do feel hopeful in the implementation of those processes. So it's very, very important today to actually take responsibility from top government all the way to local government, that accountability should in fact be something that should be taken cognizance of in actually making sure that the country progresses forward well with the respect and confidence of the people.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time. Let's leave it there for now, getting a bit of clarity and understanding there to some of the main talking points and the expectations ahead of the State of the Nation address. That was Hope Matsila, attorney and scholar at the Center for Social Impact Strategy at the University of Pennsylvania.